lives in the gap. But it also does with yesterday, it was Sunday's topic, right, about the inner awakening and coming home. And so I thought it was a really perfect topic for coming home. And so closing the gap is about moving us from where we are to where we want to be, and how difficult that can be sometimes. Because we can't get to where we are when we're focused about, we can't get to where we want to be when we're focused about where we are, right? Yeah. And so we keep that moving, and we kind of stay in that energy, which can build resistance. And so sometimes we have to learn that we can't get to where we are from where we can't get to where we want to be. I've got a cold family me. I want dog medicine. Hawkins in love with Kleenexes, so I might be really funny and I might get my words mixed up. So anyway, but we can't get to where we want to be if we're so focused on what's not working with where we are, right? And what I want to do is I want to lead this with a story, and it's from the Bible. And so Jesus had been up on a mountain, a few of the disciples, where he had what they refer to as this transformation, which is a wonderful topic. We'll talk about it for another Sunday. But he's come down the mountain, and he's had a visit with Moses and Elijah, and when the disciples saw it, and they're like, okay. So he's coming down the mountain. But we also use the mountain to refer to as going into that meditation, going into that upper state of consciousness. But as he's coming down, the disciples that he had left there was a mass of crowd there. There was a massive crowd. And there's always kind of chaos going on. And Jesus says, what's going on? And there were, a man said, I brought my son who suffers from seizures and to be healed, and they can't heal, and the disciples couldn't heal them. And Jesus made the point to say that, and I was right, to make sure that I get it right. So if he brought that suffering son there, if you can do and the man said, if you can do anything, have compassion and heal him, help us. And Jesus said, all things are possible to the one who believes. And so Jesus was trying to say that healing can happen, but you have to believe it. Now, you've got to understand, the father had probably been taking his son to a lot of different healers. This wasn't happy, right? The disciples are there saying, we can do it. We can do it. And so Jesus is not just teaching the man and his son something, he's teaching the disciples. Do you believe that it can be done? Do you believe that this did happen? And what the man said is a very moving piece of, to me, what we should understand to bring into our life. And what the man said is, he said, and we have that quote on them. Yeah. All right, so immediately the father cried out, I believe, help my unbelief. Why? Because so the man wasn't saying, I believe, but I'm wanting to believe. So help me with my unbelief, believe. So all it took was that little step. It wasn't saying, I don't believe. The man could not move into the place of that it wasn't what he was wanting, it wasn't happening, to the disbelief of that to belief because of where he was at, because it wasn't working. So after he believed in anything, but yet he wanted the healing to happen. He loved his son. And so that little bit of saying, I believe, help my unbelief. He's saying, help me step into that. And that's all that we needed, was that little invitation. So where I'm going is that we all have things in our day-to-day life. Okay, we have an unexpected bill come up. Where is that coming from? We had, argue with a family member. We have things that we don't like, and we focus on it's not getting better, it's not getting better. Let me tell you my story again today. It's not getting better. Been there, done that. Any of you, Grace? Well, so we can't get from that place of, well, I want to believe it, but I don't see it, and it's not happening. We can't just move from that place of like that misery or that pain that we are in, and which is very real to us, right? It's very real. It's a very real thing. So it's not about it pretending it doesn't exist, because you can't pretend it doesn't exist, because it exists as you keep thinking about it. And it keeps showing up. And it keeps sitting there. But what we can do is, again, to close the gap, to get to that future part, or that what we do want. And again, when we are in this place of what's not working and what we don't want, that contrast and all that icky is also telling us what we do want. So that man knew that he wanted his son to have a healthy life. He wanted his son to be able to move through life without these seizures. He wanted that. And he was doing what he knew to do. What was lacking was the belief, because people were saying they can't, maybe they're saying, I'm making stuff up. There's something we can do. Well, he's possessed. It's a bad thing. Get stay away from it and move away. You don't know all the things that the man went through on this journey. And Jesus is saying all things are possible to him who believes. And so the man is like, I really want to believe, so heal my unbelief so that I can believe. And so we, in our willingness to be aware that where we might be at, it might feel stuck, or that might feel like it's not moving, or that our prayers and affirmations are going unheard, and we keep saying that. The thing is that God's already got what you want, Spirit's already got what you want waiting there, but we are not in that, we have not crossed that space to receive it. So this is about closing that gap, right? And so the man's saying, help me unbelief, help me unbelief, help my unbelief. And so when we are in a financial despair, and we are really worried about our finances, we're like pulling the couch cushions up to get the quarters out, to go buy pizza or something. You do, yeah.
We did that last week. What are you talking about?
It was kind of funny. We actually hid because we ordered pizza, and then they would take credit card. So it's like, give me ID. You ever go through like, we don't keep cash. So it was funny. We're really doing that. But it's us. But what we have to do is say, okay, all right, I know how I want to feel, and that's God, the universe, telling you you don't have to be in this place, but being in this place is you have to move forward. That we can't just move from here to there. How many times we say, I just want to wake up and my life be different? Okay, I probably said that 3,422 million times in 67 seconds. I don't know. But it's like, what we have to understand is that we can say, all right, I don't like where I'm at, but I want to do better. So what would help me to do better? What is the next step I could take to help me believe? What is the next step that I could do? And as you're having these, you might do in your head, well, just stop thinking about it and go, all the weeds outside, But we hold on to that. It's for us to figure every single thing out. And we have to have plan A, plan B, plan C. We don't want to get to plan C, or we don't want plan B because we want plan A. But plan A is not working because, God, where are you? You're not showing up. And I'm saying that you're showing up, and I'm saying you got it. But at the same time, we're telling everybody it's not working. It's not working. It's not. I'm manifesting this, but it's not working. I'm working on this, but it's not working. Is that your work? It doesn't work. But we can't get to what we want when we're in the energy of what we don't have. Am I making sense? So when we're in those moments, we're not failing. Right? So when we're in these moments of discomfort, if we're in this moment of illness or stress, we're not failing. We've got this wonderful opportunity. Look at this contrast and, I don't like how this feels. So what's in us? I don't like this, so I know I don't want this. So what can I do right now? It would help me feel better, right? Would go on our walk, help. Would it, it's like being open to moving. It's the closing the gap. Now, this closing the gap comes to a lot of things in our life, right? Because again, we want to get to where we're at, to where we want to go. And again, the resistance, and we can be very comfortable in our misery. We know how to, I've never said, I was a doormat for 17 years, so I got pretty flat. But here's the thing is that somebody didn't make me the doormat. I laid down. I laid down and gave permission to it. And so sometimes, too, we silence ourselves. So silence can give permission, right? If you've ever been in a situation you'd speak up and that person just kept doing it again and again, silence will give permission. But sometimes we're silencing ourselves to not look and to see and to hear what we want to say. Sure. And when we are practicing spirituality, when we are unitics, we often, and especially if we're in a newlery process, we will think, well, it's not spiritual to be unhappy. It's not spiritual. I can't be. So I just have to tell everybody things are fine, everything is. I can be unhappy. And true, we can be unhappy and in that spiritual high vibration at the same time. But we've got to give ourselves say, but I do feel like this, so how can I move through it? So it's really important that we don't deny that we're set, that we start to look at how can we start to move and what can we start to do and what are some things that can help in that energy, right? And so again, it can be having these inner conversations, and it is a lot about having those conversations or writing on the paper, like what's working, what's not. And it's like, well, I'm still mad at my dad because he sold my motorcycle after I bought all the stuff to make it go faster, and he kept the money, and you're still mad, right? So it's like, well, okay, is that affecting you today? When you can start to write those little letters to, so why am I still mad at my dad? Is it because he did pay me that money? Do I really need that money today? Is it okay? Can I let go? But we could have these funky conversations. And I say funky because it depends on what kind of conversation you have. And sometimes you can write it out, right? And it helps you start to focus and to say, okay, and this is where I want to go. So just to be present right now, to understand that I haven't been happy with where I'm at, but I have the power to choose where I am going. Right now, everyone really has that power to choose and to move that where I am going. Am I making sense? Right. So let's take this closing the app a little bit further. So we, as a ministry, as a church, are working to close the gap. Right? To close the gap from being in a temporary space to having a space where we can be of more service to the community. Right? So we've been with a gap. So we started moving through the gap. We started looking at places. We agreed to looking places to lease and to rent and to start to move. So those are steps. We had more willingness to look, willingness to go, and the willingness to move to see what good might come out of this. What good might come out. And so when we had our last board meeting, Sue said there's this realtor, and I guess it's realtor, the social property we have, but with Dottie quit. And Sue said, he does a lot of good things in the community, and I think we should contact it. And so I looked at her and I says, well, you contact it. And she reached out. And so got a nice young little guy in there. Anybody at the show me? Travis. And and Sue would tell him about some places if I found a place for him to give us information on. And so one thing was, hey, there's a place where, there's a church there, so we know it'll be open for the The zoning is there for us to, so you could do that. And he says, so let's look at that. And then the landlord says, no, they don't do the competition. So he goes, I want 2 churches in that place. So that was out. Then it was like, are you willing to share an afternoon with the church? Well, my thought was not really, because that's kind of what we've got now. But tell us what you got. But he was, so it was big church, but it would be in the afternoons for $12,000 a month for Sunday afternoon. So we're all no. And so then I started saying, okay, this is our, we didn't start with saying this is the size of our congregation, right? And so I was giving him, this is the size of our congregation. We want it for them, but we also want to be able to have other people come and maybe grow out of. And I says, we're really doing the Goldilocks thing, right? Like, the port is too hot, it's too cold, this one's just right. So we're really working at the Goldilocks thing. And then we found this daycare that was on the floor and really good disability, thank you. And he didn't know how much that was going to be. And the outside, the grounds looked okay, but there'd be, again, would we be able to zone it? We wouldn't know. But we went in and it was like all kind of I mean, like, and it would cost like $300,000 or $400,000. I can't get the lease to get it into a condition. Like, if I was taking my kids there, I would wait. But anyway, he wanted $6,000 a month, right? Yeah. But just prior to that, that was the listing that we were set up to go see. He found it dropped into his hand that morning, is one of the listing agents has I call it a strip mall, I don't believe it's called, on West Pflugerville Parkway. And he set a church. He just moved out of it because, and which was kind of a little bit of a sad story, but that it wasn't even out on market yet, and that the price was really important. And again, as we've been talking with the board, it's like, so we could pay 2 or 3 years up front, so that way we can breathe and we can see if we are going to close the gap. If we're going to get to where we need to be and need to go. And so Rick and Sue and me, now Keith, we went down there and we just thought it was a really good thing. And then it has a sanctuary. It's like staging. It would stage like 50-foot high seat. It's probably like 20-some square feet. Does that sound right? Yeah, it's about 3 years. Like a 47, but it has 2 offices and it has a bathroom and it doesn't have a kitchen, but there's a storage area that we'll be talking about if we can make kitchenette out of it. So, coffee and microwave, that kind of stuff. But the price all in, so you pay rent and then you have to pay what they call this triple net. So that's like whatever their insurance and taxes are. All in, $2,250.75 a month. And so again, we really will pay ahead, and then you have to, in commercial properties, you have to agree to a length of time. But because we were already talking about paying up front, we don't have to lock ourselves into a 5-year contract. And that there's an increase every year because of whatever, that the rent would go up itself. Triple N, you can't do anything about that. That's just kind of like whatever happens with but anyway, they would knock off that 3% for the following years. That 3% in eyes because we would pay up front. So I called Connie and Trav and Kathy and Sue and Harry, and because Dee's a prayer chaplain, I felt like she should go. And so we all went. But so this is a stage of like us doing the movement to close the gap. Okay? And so I see it as having real sure possibilities. The board will take a vote. But where I'm going is that we are seeing movement. We're seeing that energy of movement. And the value, you want to share anything that how you felt when you went in, or?
It was, so, you have those 5 things, that like they had just found out about it. And you walk in and it was very reminiscent of the space that we had on Anderson Square, where you have opportunity to do things. There's an opportunity for an office. There's an opportunity for a classroom. There's an opportunity for a little gathering area right as you walk in. And the fact that it already has a sanctuary, I mean, we could fit 100 people in that space.
Easy.
And it had a stage already built. But the beautiful thing was that in the sanctuary, the ceilings are like super high. And so it's just got this really, I just felt possibility. It needs some fixing up. It needs some pay. We need to do some work. We didn't build in a kitchenette. Then it would be a great next step. It would be great, and it's got a really good location right off of Pflugerville Parkway. And then I got super excited, and I did. There was absolutely no that he did feeling what I was there stays, which is, like every house we've looked at or whatever, the floors have been sloped, or there's been, this is something that you just knew for some reason it wasn't gonna work. I didn't feel that all. And Riff put together a video, and so after we do the closing song, you'll get to and watch that video. You can kind of see the specs.
It's not Greek. Is this campaign running the specs for us?
Oh yeah, and Tommy is a and the check it out. It's
Better.
Yeah, and then the thing is, no matter what we give, we would have to work to accommodate what we need. And but I think that the overall thing to work that need to be done, then offset what we sell from because basically we were looking at 4 or 5 times. So it's like I feel like that this would have a quick payoff. But the one thing about it is that it is a usable space now that we can do as we go, or we kept it to working up and then events. I mean, but it is usable.
And some of the Super Bowl days is that we had talked about as a ward is how do we help our community? How do we serve our community? And it would be a great space if somebody needed a room for an AA meeting, or schedules say that is blabber, that we can bring in some income that way, but maybe we can offer at a very affordable rate to help somebody on sale. But it just would give us space to do things other than just meeting on Sundays.
Yeah, so we could stay later. We could have ice cream. We have ice cream Sunday. Yeah. Duh.
Sweet.
There are things that to do, and I know that's what when I would hear is, oh, we have a healing room. Yes, no place for the healing center. There's, and so I was starting to ask questions. What's the healing center? I was like, but we had that space, so we have usable space. It's space that we can anchor energy into, right? And so this is part of like closing the gap for us to have consistency and to know what to see. This can be a really good way to see, are we going to continue to grow, or are we going to not? But it gives us more exposure out in the community, and we can have more things without having to pay a fee to have another space to do something extra.